In January 897, the Pope of Rome put the previous Pope of Rome on trial. The accused did not attend. He had been dead for 9 months, so they went and got him. They dug up Pope Formosus, dressed the body in full papal robes, and sat it on a throne to face the charges. And because every defendant has the right to answer for himself, they gave the corpse a lawyer.
He pleads not guilty.
That is a teenage deacon. That is his whole job today. He is going to be doing the voice. This is the Cadaver Synod, and it somehow gets worse. Quick scale check, because 897 was a rough year for job security. Formosus died in April. The next pope, Boniface VI, lasted 15 days. Then a man named Stephen took the chair, and Stephen had a problem. Not a political problem, a paperwork problem. And he was about to solve it with a shovel. Here is the paperwork. Formosus started out as the Bishop of Porto, and church law at the time was very clear. A bishop belongs to one place. You do not get to trade up. Formosus traded up. He left Porto and became pope, which, if you squint, means every single thing he ever did as pope was invalid.
Every appointment, every blessing, every signature.
And that is a very convenient thing to believe if you don't like the people he appointed. So in January, the trial began. And I want to be precise about how this looked. A living pope in his own cathedral, screaming questions at a 9-month-old corpse in a hat.
Why did you usurp the See of Rome?
The corpse declines to comment.
He says it was an honest mistake.
The deacon is reading from a card. Somebody wrote the corpse's answers down beforehand, which means at some point a grown man sat in a room alone and did dialogue for a dead guy. There were 3 charges: perjury, coveting the papacy, and violating that rule about bishops moving now. You may be wondering whether anybody in the room raised the obvious objection, because there is one. It is enormous, and it is standing at the front, doing the shouting. Stephen VI was ordained a bishop by Formosus. So if Formosus was never really pope, then Formosus never really ordained anybody, which means Stephen was never really a bishop, which means Stephen was never really pope, which means the man running this trial had no standing to run this trial by the exact argument he was using to win it.
Guilty on all 3 counts.
He won. That is the part people forget. He actually won. The sentence came in 3 parts, and they got progressively less legal. 1, every act of his papacy was annulled. Fine. That is a document problem. 2, they stripped the robes off the body and put it in ordinary clothes. 3, they cut off the 3 fingers of his right hand, the blessing fingers, so he could not do it again. Quick honesty note, because this channel does that. Our best account of the gruesome details was written about 60 years later by a bishop with a grudge and a flair for drama. The trial is solid. The fingers take with a grain of salt. Then they buried him in the cemetery for foreigners, which in 9th century Rome was the polite way of saying, "Not with us." And then, apparently somebody decided that still wasn't enough. They dug him up, again, and threw him in the Tiber. That is twice. 2 separate occasions where a group of adults agreed that the correct next step was to go get the body. Here is where it turns. A monk pulled him out of the river, and almost immediately, people started saying the body was working miracles. Now, whether or not you believe that, watch what it does politically. Rome had just watched their pope put a corpse on trial, and now the corpse was the one performing miracles. The public reached a verdict of its own. There was an uprising. Stephen was seized, stripped of the office he had spent a whole trial proving nobody legally had, and thrown in prison. And in that cell, in that same year, he was strangled. 8 months. That is the entire pontificate of Stephen VI. He spent a meaningful percentage of it prosecuting furniture. Also that year, and I promise this is true, the Lateran Basilica collapsed. Not during the trial. Later. The roof came down from the altar all the way to the doors. Rome, being Rome, took the hint. The next pope, Theodore II, reversed the whole thing. Formosus was recovered, redressed, and reburied in St. Peter's with honors. Theodore II then reigned for about 20 days, because it was 897, and that is simply what happened to people. His successor, John IX, banned the practice entirely, actual written canon law. You may not try a dead person. A rule that existed because somebody had to be told. And that should be the end. It is not the end. 7 years later, in 904, a man called Sergius III became pope. Sergius had been in the room at the original trial, as a judge. So he called his own synod, threw out the rulings that had cleared Formosus, and re-condemned him.
The original verdict stands.
Now, the internet will tell you Sergius dug the body up a second time and beheaded it. He did not. That story comes from the same 60 years later bishop, who also put the entire trial under the wrong pope. What Sergius actually did was file paperwork. He reconvicted a dead man administratively, which is honestly funnier. No shovel, no river, just a man at a desk, formally re-losing an argument to a corpse. So let's total it up. 1 corpse, 2 exhumations, 3 fingers, 3 trials if you count the appeals, and the dead guy went 2 and 1. Every single person who prosecuted him lost their job, their reputation, or their windpipe. And the only participant who came out of it with his honors intact, buried in St. Peter's, officially vindicated, never said a word in his own defense, because he couldn't. Last time on this channel, 2 Italian cities fought a war over a stolen bucket. I thought that was the stupidest thing Italy ever did to itself. I was wrong. Subscribe, and I'll keep being wrong.